A few months ago, you might have seen my review of the RovyVon S23 portable handheld searchlight. It's an interesting light that I liked very much that has a reflector with quad 35-35 emitters. Well, RovyVon just sent me their S21 searchlight, which looks very similar, but this time it has one large deep reflector with an SFT70. Which is an excellent emitter. Welcome back to Schul Lights. I'm really happy to review this S21 because I did like the S23 greatly, and you know, I gotta tell you, the S21 lives up to the hype. It's just as good as S23, maybe even a little better. They're very similar. The UIs are the same. They kind of the fit and finish and size and everything is very similar. Really, it does just kind of boil down to this idea of, are we going to do a quad emitter setup here, or are we going to do a single high-powered emitter? Now, they're both really throwy, but the quad emitter setup is a little bit wider of a hotspot, but it's also less candela. This S21 has a tighter hotspot, but it punches, man. It really throws, and we get outside to the Beamshots. I'll show you that. I was walking the other day with both of these in my hand, doing a walk with my kid, and I was turning them both on, and then just, you know, kind of shooting back and forth with both of them. And even though I liked the tint on the S23 a little bit better, even though I liked that the beam was a little floodier on the S23, I kept coming back to the S21 because, man, it didn't give up a lot on the flood, but it really just threw so hard with more intensity. So hopefully, you know, as I said, when we get to the beam shots, hopefully you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, I do also want to point out that the particular model that RovyVon sent me is called Black, and it's kind of got a matte black finish compared to the S23 here, which was called Gunmetal Gray, and it's got kind of a satin, kind of a sheen to it. So when it comes to the finishes, I think they're both excellent, but I do think that I personally like kind of smooth finishes. I just like that, the way that feels in my hands. I mean, there's definitely enough different grips built into the shape of the light to prevent this from slipping. So I do like this kind of smooth NO that they have on this light, but that doesn't mean this is bad. It feels really good. And actually I could see how people might actually prefer a little more grip, a little more purchase on the light. So that's nice. Also, since I've had this light for a while, I noticed that they made some changes to the stenciling, and you can see that they've made it a little clearer what the UI does down here. So once we get to the UI, see, this just has arrows. It doesn't, I mean, there's these little icons up here, which are also repeated on the new one, but I think that this does kind of help you know what you're doing with this UI a little better. But, you know, also let me point out that this UI is just excellent. So once we get to the UI section, we will really kind of dig into that and talk about why it's such an excellent UI. All right, I want to go over the box and the contents. Now, first off, it has an excellent box that came in this large plastic bag, and the box itself is like a mini Pelican case. It's so neat. It's got these excellent latches, and it has an actual legitimate hinge with a metal pin. So I love that thing. It's got a foam on the inside, as you can see. Came with a user manual. Let me make sure I get sharp focus on this. This was attached around the button here, and what it was to remind me to take this little insulating disc off the battery to engage the battery. So that's all those two things are for. It comes with a little bag here that has a lanyard in it and O-rings. And then there is a little warranty card if you want to send that in. Now, the case is just excellent. I mean, look at this. It fits the light perfectly. And then, you know, when you close it, you can't tell, but, well, maybe if I hold like this, you can tell. You can see it's not wanting to close. That's because you push the foam against it and then it compresses. So that's ideal. That means that it's not going to be rattling around in there when it's in the case. So kudos to them for giving us an amazing case. Let's talk about the charging and the battery. You know, one thing I left out of the previous section was that the light also did come with a charging cable. So if you turn the light over like this, on the back here, you'll see that there is a USB-C charge port, and it's thoughtfully got stenciled that it'll charge at 3 amps. If if your cable at least goes to a charging block that does 3 amps. Now, you got a little flappy doodle here. This is USB-C on it. Get your finger under that, rotate it out of the way, and there's your USB-C port. And you can see right here is a little charge light that turns on and then changes colors when it's full. Charging in the light is quick and fast and easy. Fast because of the 3 amps. But, you know, you don't even have to use the charging in the light if you have a standalone charger. I just want to point out that when you're in the off state like this and you press the button, it will give you a 4 light charge indicator. Now, at the bottom here, with the tail cap, you can unscrew this, and it's a completely standard, high-quality Samsung 50E battery. So that's a 21700, flat top, unprotected. You can get any unprotected flat top 21700 that you want and throw it in this light. And if you want to put, you know, a 40T in there or something else, go for it. But the 50E will give you more runtime. So let's go ahead and close that back up, and you can see those threads are excellent. You can see they're greased and they got an O-ring there. Also, I should point out, even though we're in the battery section, I didn't point this out earlier, there's a giant stencil here about a magnet, and that's because this is magnetic. So this entire light can be attached to like the underside of the hood on a car or something for working on a car in a pinch. But now that we've talked about the charging and the battery, let's move on to the UI. So for me, what makes this light stand out from other lights on the market is not just the quality of the light and the fact that they are using really high quality cells that are off the shelf, but it's just the simplicity of this UI. The fact that they got this kind of semi-rotary dial here and then a button interface that is so dead simple that I can put this light down on a shelf for months, pick it up, and remember exactly how it works within seconds. I mean, if I'm confused at all, it's so easy just to feel it out without even using a manual. So the way it works, and I'll get a close-up here on the interface, is you've got a little dial there in the middle, and when it's centered like this, the light is off, and activation of the button just gives you a battery readout. But when you take that little indicator there and you move it towards where it's got a lamp picture, the flashlight will turn on. So if I go ahead and do that, you see that I get a battery indicator for an instant, and now the flashlight is on. And if I were to go back to the center, it's off. So that's on and off. On and off. That easy. Now, if I go the other way, this is going to be the strobe modes. Now, I remember when I first was playing with its, cousin, the S23, I thought, to myself internally at least, I don't know if I said it in the video, that it seemed kind of odd to put all the strobes in its own section over here. And I don't know, I guess I wondered to myself, maybe it would have been better if, turning it one way was moonlight modes and one way was turbo modes or something. But then I thought about it and I said, no, this is kind of genius, because look, some people out there really care about fast access to strobes, and this is the fastest you can get, right? It's like whatever you're doing over here, you want strobes, just flip it over, and then you got them, right? But what else is excellent about this is for somebody like me who doesn't really use strobe that often, it's really easy to avoid them. Because if you, flip to the right here, there is absolutely zero strobes over here. Whatever you do on this button, you're not going to hit a strobe. So not only is it simple and easy to use and visual, you can just look right at it, but it really does solve some problems. People that want fast access to tactical strobe got it. People who don't want to run into strobes will not. So anyways, let's go on with the interface here. So if you're in the flashlight mode, let me put it down here and get some focus. So if you're in flashlight mode, whatever mode you came on in was memorized. So if I turn it off and then come back, it's going to be on the same mode. Then when you press here, every time you press, it just goes up a notch. And there's 4 modes. So it's, like a low, a medium high, and then a high. So there's the medium high, and then there's the high. So when I hit it, it's going back to low, and then medium high, high. Now there is a hidden turbo, and the turbo is activated at any time by holding the button. So there's no double clicks here for turbo. So wherever I'm at, even the low, if I press and hold, I now get turbo. So I actually really like that. It's awesome because turbo is not meant to be used for a long amount of time. Sometimes I hear viewers of my channel complain about how hot their light gets on turbo. And I understand their confusion. I think that most enthusiasts know that turbo is just supposed to be used for a short amount of time, just to kind of extend your reach, just to kind of get further out there. But I understand the confusion for newbies because, if turbo's in the main mode group, it kind of seems like something you should use all the time. But the genius of placing it on a press and hold is, to me, to actively have to push something down and hold it indicates this is for a little while, guys. You shouldn't be doing it too much. Now, as I said, on the other side here is all the strobes. So let's go ahead and turn it into strobes, and you see it puts it into strobe right away. And then if you tap, you get an SOS. There you go. That's an SOS right there. Tap again, you go back to the strobe. All right. So easy peasy, lemon squeezy, a UI that I really believe anybody, even without a manual, can just pick up this light and use. And chef's kiss to that. I've used a lot of lights in my time. I just like simplicity. I like that when a light feels like an extension of your hand and you just automatically know how to use it. Okay, so in the manual here, we got some quoted run times. Let's take a look at those. So we see that the output lumens here on Eco says 30, but it says that it runs for multiple days at that level. Now, remember, Eco is not a moonlight. It's quite bright, actually. If you're, in a power outage, 30 is definitely enough to walk around and see everything in your house. The low, they called it low. I called it medium and medium high, but the low here is 200 lumens, they quote, and you still get all night at that rate. And then the medium, which is 800 lumens, and that's a lot. You're still going to get 2.5 hours. The high, they're quoting 1600 lumens, and they're saying you get 4 minutes of it, and then 2.5 hours of the medium mode here. And then turbo, it doesn't have a quote for the run time or anything like that, because you're just not supposed to use the turbo that long. You're supposed to hold it with your fingy, right? And they say 3000 lumens. And you know what? I did get that on the Lumen tube, so we're going to check that out in a moment here. All right, so we're going to do some lumen testing. We're reading 3.5 lumens right now with it open. If I cover it, you see we're still reading a little bit of light leak here from my video lights, but I wouldn't worry about it because we're not measuring moonlight. So let's go ahead and turn it on into low, shove that in there. Wow, look at that, 40 lumens. That's what they said in the manual. Go up a notch to their low here, because that was the Eco, the last one. They said 200 lumens, but we're getting almost 250. That's excellent. Go up to their medium, and they said 800, and we're getting 1,000. Awesome. Go up to their high, and they said 1,600, and we're getting almost 2,000. So this light's actually overperforming, at least at 0 seconds. Now, we're going to do a turbo runtime test here. Let me let the light rest for a moment. Okay, we got the light on Eco. It says 40 lumens. I'm going to up the range to times 10, so that's why it says 3 now, because it's 30, right? So I'll go ahead and press the turbo, and let's start the test now. All right, so we hit 3,000 lumens, And it's dropping a little bit off of 0. Oh, now it's dropping a lot. Okay, so it dropped down to 1,000 lumens before ANSI. So you got a burst, and then it dropped down. I'm going to run this test all the way through. I expect it's not going to change much because the light isn't even really hot. So that just means it must be programmed. I don't know if it's a time thing or if it's a temperature thing, but for the light to drop down to the 1,000 lumens of, the medium, that's interesting. Okay, so we're over ANSI. Let me let go. Let me actually go to that medium. So here we go. All right, so there's the medium, right? So that's the almost 1,000 lumens. And let me do the turbo again. So we're up around 3,000 for a moment. Okay, let's see what happens here. We're about 10 seconds in. All right, so it'll do the turbo for about 10 seconds, and then it just drops down. Okay, interesting. Here, let me try that one more time. I want to see, if this is a heat thing or a timed thing. And let's see here, and boop. Okay, we're 5 seconds in. Light is getting quite hot, by the way, to my fingers. And 10 seconds in. Oh, 10 seconds in, it drops. Okay, so it's a timed thing. But, after 3 turbos in a row, right here around the light, right here, especially around the fins, it is very toasty. Like, not so hot that I couldn't just keep my finger on it, but it's unpleasant. So if I'd done a 4th one, I'm sure that if I'd mashed my finger and held it, I'd probably be burning myself. So, I don't know, 10 seconds of turbo. So use it sparingly to get that 3,000. There we go. All right, let's do tint measurement. It's always kind of silly to measure a high-powered emitter like this SFT70. I mean, it's not really designed for high CRI or tint, but let's go ahead and do it. So I'll put this on medium here, and I turn my video lights down so they don't compete. And there you go, on medium, we got 6200K. And 80 above. Let me go to turbo, do the same thing. And we got 6700 and about 24 above. Let me go to low and see what that is doing. Here, let me just cup this a little bit. All right, so closer to 6,000 and a little greener. But do remember that, that's not so much as green when you're up around 6,000. It's kind of more of a, I don't know, purplish. All right, we're out front to do some beam shots. I got the ThruNite TN12 Pro with an SFT40 emitter. Then we got the S21 by RovyVon. This is the SFT70 emitter. You're going to see how much more intense this is over the luminous SFT40. The 70 is a big boost. And then we've got the RovyVon S23. This is the quad emitter that I've got 519A 5700Ks in. So let's start. So a reminder that this tree right here is 20 meters, not this one behind the RV, but this one is 55 meters, and this row of trees, palm trees in the back, is 150 meters. Let's take a look at the S23 first because it is the quad emitter floody version. Go straight to turbo, and you can see how it's doing. So it's definitely making that tree at 55 meters. And I don't think it's making that tree line at the back there. I mean, to my eyes, I see a little bit off the trunks, but I don't know if it's even reading on camera. But there you go. So obliterates this close. Oh, it stepped down. There we go. Obliterates the close tree. Obliterates that one. And in the back, maybe. Now let's go straight to turbo with the ThruNite. You can see it's a much more concentrated beam. And you can see it makes those distances like the 150 meter mark in the back, no problem. But it is no match for the SFT in the S21. So let's go straight to turbo and look at the difference. What a great light. This one is almost double the lumens, and it's just obliterating all these targets. All right, now I'm going to do S23 and S21. S23 and S21. So as much as I love 35-35 emitters, you can see why the S21 is my favorite between these two. It's just a much more intense, much more useful light when you're outside. I do like this light. Well made, well thought out, includes everything you want, like a good battery, charging port right on the light. I mean, it does command a little bit higher of a price than other SFT70 lights. I mean, you get what you pay for, I suppose, and it's not astronomically expensive. It's just a little bit more expensive than other lights. I know that I'm at a place in my life where I'll pay a little bit more to get a better product. I do like this light. I like this light more than the one we saw in the Beamshots, the competitor, the ThruNite TN12 Pro. The TN12 Pro is a little smaller, but I mean, this is a 21700 and this guy is an 18650. For a little bit extra on the host, just a little extra size, I think that it's worth the extra runtime and output, because there is a big output difference between these two. On the Lumen tube, I saw that this thing was almost half the lumens as this was on turbo. So if you want a really good SFT70 thrower, I don't think you have to look any further than this new RovyVon S21 Search. Great little light. And as much as I like the modability of the S23 here, the fact that it's 4 35-35 emitters, and both these lights are really easy to get into. I got into both of them by just using strap wrenches up here. As much as I like the idea of getting in there, and oh, by the way, I swapped in Nichia 519s in here, so this is actually 5700 with the dome. So yeah, I actually done several swaps on this light already. It's been a fun little experiment. As much as I like that about this light, I think this is probably the better of the two. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.